Good morning and welcome to Judging by the Cover, the gaming review show where I rate games that I have not played and score them based on the store pages. Today, we're looking at a relatively small looking game with a pretty simple graphic style, but something that has a bit of a twist to it, shall we say. On the surface, you may look at this and see, like, okay, it looks like somewhere between NES and Super Nintendo era graphic style with like a kind of Stardew, Harvest Moon, Story of Seasons motif. Clearly, we're on a farm, there's crops, there's animals. So, what exactly is going on here? Well, that's what we're going to be getting into to find out how we can exactly rate this game by BitQuest Studio. Now, a quick little aside here, BitQuest Studio, I did take a brief look at what they have created. They have a handful of games that have been released over the last year and a half, 2 years, with the earliest one showing Little Library from April of last year, Office Survival Simulator also from April, Urban Ascend also in April 2026, April 10th, 2026. So they seem to have multiple projects going on simultaneously with very close release windows, which has me a little wondering a little bit how many people working on this. Obviously, since I'm just looking at Steam, I don't have all the information of how big their studio is, who all's on staff, how many people are working on each individual project, or if this is just kind of a series of small passion projects. But anyway, we are just looking at this one particular game today, released in May of 2026, so very recently compared to some of their other titles, to look at Bitter Harvest. So, first off, I know we usually start off with the trailer, but the trailer is very short. It's less than 1 minute long of information. So, let's jump straight into the description. Bitter Harvest is a narrative driven farming sim offering a 5 to 8 hour single player campaign shaped by relationships, moral choices, and branching end game outcomes. Already off to an interesting start here. Normally, when you look at these kinds of farming sim games, you have a kind of prolonged game experience where you're playing along each in-game day over a course of however many months, years taking place within that game world. Your dream of owning a farm falls apart the moment you arrive in the village. The land has already been claimed, and the only job left is collecting the town's garbage. With nothing but determination, you begin piecing together a new life from what others throw away. Bitter Harvest is a 2D farming simulation about ambition, reinvention, and quiet revenge. Earn money through crafting, farming, and odd jobs as you climb from the bottom of the social ladder. Build relationships with the townsfolk, uncover their secrets, and decide how far you're willing to go to take back what was stolen. Will you work honestly, use what you learn about others to your advantage, or bend the town's trust to get ahead? Your actions will shape your reputation, your relationships, and the kind of ending you receive. So, kind of interesting to see there that there are definitive endings, which they that makes sense since they tout this as a narrative driven farming game. Now, usually these kinds of farming games do have narratives and storylines that are centered on each of the individual characters in the village as you get to know them. But this one seems to focus more on your character and how you deal with the hand that you're dealt when, like they say, your farm is basically taken from you. It features a rags to riches story. You rise from trash collector to landowner through work, wit, or manipulation. Farming, you grow and sell crops to earn income and expand your land. Crafting turns salvaged materials into tools, goods, and upgrades. Fishing, spend quiet days, by the water or reel in catches to sell at the market. Mining, dig for ore and rare finds to fuel your rise in the village economy. Cooking, create meals that boost your energy, charm, or profits. Mini games, you can play optional cooking and crafting mini games or turn them off if you wish. I do like that if they're going to include something like that, they go ahead and leave a way to turn it off because that's one of the things I've complained about in some of these kinds of games. Like the fishing in Stardew, for example, I'm not a huge fan of. So if I can remove it with a mod, I am more than happy to do so. The fact that this one has an in-game option to turn off those little mini games that might just feel kind of monotonous and boring when you just want to get back to the actual like core of the gameplay. Other people might actually enjoy them though, so the option there is still nice to have for the people who do want that little bit of extra engagement. Personal relationships. Each villager reacts to your choices, ambitions, and reputation, scandals, and secrets. You learn what others hide and decide whether to use it for profit or to let it be. And finally, a cozy world with sharp undertones, peaceful days, and simple labor hide a story about power and consequence. So, again, they are really leaning into this whole dynamic of you and how you interact with the world around you being the core of the game, not just a simple farming simulator where you get farm, plant crops, raise animals, and call it a day. That said, we do have a little bit to note here with the trailer. The trailer basically goes into that similar information. We do see the brief cutscene here of you showing up in town and finding that your farm is gone. You go in, you're rummaging through the trash, being, the village trash collector, where that probably starts off with your crafting objectives. We do see a little brief snippet of fishing, the crafting menu, these sorts of things. So, but really, it is still a 48-second trailer, so there's really not much that it does give us. It's a very brief hint that at least tells us what kind of things we can expect to get involved with the game, but not so much so that it's spoiling anything, giving away storylines. It's just enough to kind of tease and whet the appetite for what the player can expect. And I don't know what that last scene was, putting cyanide in the animal feed. So it looks like you do even get the options to be a little murdery if you're so inclined. Honestly, that is probably one of the wildest things that I can see about this game. Now, moving on along, we have a handful of screenshots to kind of appreciate here. We do have uh wandering through the town. We have just the I mean, it's a very simple screenshot of just a shot of the town itself. We do see the crop field, which looks like you do actually plant and water the crops yourself, a fishing pond, a little central pond in the village, and characters all over the place. We do have shots of the animals, shots of the outside at night, a little bit of a quest board situation here where it looks like you're picking out which quest you want to take. So we do see a little bit of these menus, incredibly simple menus that basically just kind of do the job and get the point across. They're not very intricate, they're not fancy. We don't see multiple tabs all over the place, but we just kind of have this inkling of, what to expect here. I guess it doesn't really need to be that complicated, but it does feel a little bare bones when I'm looking at it like this, the way that it's laid out with the food recipes here with descriptions, ingredients, what all you need. It's a very simple and short portrayal on the Steam page that doesn't give us a lot to look at for the game, but I feel like it does kind of give us enough to where if this is your kind of game, like if you know that you like these kinds of farming sim games, or maybe narrative games that take a familiar set of tropes and twist things around a little bit, I can see that being something that, people will appreciate. Whether or not that is for you, though, that's going to be a little bit up in the air. Now, graphically speaking, like I said earlier, I feel like I'm looking at something that sits somewhere between NES and Super Nintendo console type of pixel graphic art. It is incredibly simple, but it is vibrant enough and distinct enough where you can tell what's what. You can tell what's a building, you can tell what's a trash can, you can tell what humans are. you have, and you can differentiate one person from another. The graphics do the job of conveying the setting here, and I know some people might prefer maybe a little more refinement to their pixels, but I do believe that the graphics are at least serviceable, and they do show a clear picture of what you are trying to figure out as you go along. It does at least look intuitive for anybody that has ever picked up a controller in their lives. Sound wise, we do get a little bit of background music and otherwise not a lot of sound design in the less than 1 minute of trailer time that we get. And otherwise, it is the narration that's the main driving force behind that trailer, just kind of talking to you about what you're expecting going in. Gameplay, now, the gameplay I think is where it can be a very hit or miss for this. We don't see a lot of depth to the game. We do kind of get told that there are options in how you interact with people, how you engage with the information that you receive. Other than that, it does look like there is some of your standard farming and crafting game situation going on. Not a whole lot to go in, especially when they tell you that the game can take, 5 to 8 hours to basically reach the ending. Whether or not there's even an endless mode or anything like some kind of longevity or endless or long form mode, kind of hard to say for sure. Now, the UI and the menus, again, like I mentioned before with the trailers and the couple of screenshots where they do show us some of that, they look pretty bare bones. And I'm pretty sure that you probably pulled up those crafting menus and stuff from interacting with the correct platform. We don't really see much of the inventory menu on its own. And it may not necessarily be the worst thing, but like I said, it does feel a little bare bones. It feels like maybe there could be a little more organization, a little more depth to the variety of items you can work with, and all sorts of stuff like that. Now, the pricing of the game, this is where we need to kind of get into the meat of things. Bitter Harvest is sitting here at $10, and for a for what the developers tell us is a 5 to 8 hour game, I can see that being a fair price, especially if exploring these kinds of narrative structures to familiar game tropes or game genres it is something that you're up for, then $10 could be a fair price. I feel like I would personally wait for this to go on a sale if I was going to try it for that, because I'm not even sure that I would want to put in that full 5 to 8 hours to even reach the ending, which I don't know. I feel like it's not even that much of an ask. It's not that much of a commitment. But considering we do have games like Stardew and Terraria and so many other things where, you get so much game for 15 to $20, it does feel like when you're trying to have something that is going to make me think of those and maybe try and fall back to those, it might be a little bit harder for me to swallow a $10 price tag on it, just kind of as a personal thing. I am also a little on the fence with the kind of fast production cycle that the developer seems to have. Now, again, I don't know that I'm not saying it's even just one person cranking out all of these games. They could easily be a bunch of people sharing some development tips that are working together in more of a support capacity while each of them is individually working on their passion project, this being somebody's in particular. But that's mostly a guess. Whether or not that is the actual situation, I think it would be kind of cool to see, what their deal is with that, like how they organize themselves to have multiple releases like within days of each other from the same developer label. Now there are also a handful of bundles for this. There's a Community Roots bundle which comes with another game from the same developer, Little Library. One has packaged with Fit Happens, again same developer, and a Hidden Treasures bundle with Retro Relics. Was Retro Relics also from this same developer? I don't recall off the top of my head. No, this is History Explorer. So this one is actually with a different developer, and there is a total of 5 bundles. So maybe explore the bundles, see if maybe there's something else you'd like in there, so you can get like a little bit of a discount on that. But me personally, I would probably wait until I saw this price go down on sale before I picked it up. But again, this is just based on what I'm seeing on the store page. I'm not even taking other people's reviews or impressions of this in mind with this. That's something that if you want to look at those, I do recommend taking a gander at them yourself, see if there's things you agree with, things you disagree with, or if people raise concerns in negative reviews that might not necessarily be deal breakers for you, by all means, form your own opinions for that. After all, I am just here kind of giving my own personal take based on what I'm looking at for the store page and its presentation. Now, again, this is clearly a small indie game from a tiny little studio. It is somebody's I feel like this was somebody's passion project. Somebody had an idea of what if with a twist. Like what if this game but with a little twist. And then they kept the gameplay short so that it wouldn't like try and over it wouldn't look like it's trying to overshadow those more popular entries in the genre. Now they do have a couple of updates here. Version 1.4 is available now, so they have been having some things. And this was in on June 25th, so less than a month ago. They actually had an update for this that added animals, sprinklers, farm expansion, new crops. So they have been working on the game and expanding the game since that original release, which also tells me that's kind of a nice thing to see here. And this is just from the most recent updates. They're also boasting 1,000 copies sold, which honestly feels like it's probably on the small side. But the fact that that in June of 2026, so at basically just before July, at the very end of June, they were talking about being incredibly grateful for breaking 1,000 copies sold. Now, in the larger scheme of things, I feel like 1,000 copies is an incredibly low bar for game sales, especially on a digital platform. However, that doesn't necessarily mean that every game has to get tons of sales in order for the developer to feel successful and proud about it. If this was somebody's little passion project where they just wanted to go ahead and make something and put it out there into the world, maybe make a couple bucks off of it, then honestly, if they are pleased with that success, I am happy for the developer and for the studio behind it that they had the chance to see their vision get put out into the world. And I'm saying that as also anybody watching this, you can see the size and the scope of my YouTube channel. Yes, I have daily uploads going up, and yes, some of those uploads actually do get around, you know, 10, 15, 20, 30 views on a good day. I There was the one review I did that ended up getting like 9 or 10,000 views or something. That is a huge, huge deviation from the norm for this channel, where a lot of these reviews are lucky to even hit 10 views. So, as a small time content creator myself, I can appreciate that the developers, they're happy to see that their work is appreciated by somebody. And the fact that they sold 1,000 things, honestly, that's more games than I've sold, so I can't even critique that one too hard. I do appreciate that what looks like the passion and the drive behind this. Now, whether or not the game itself has the depth that reflects that passion, that I can't speak to that because I have not played the game yet. And like I said, I may kind of keep an eye on things to see if it goes on sale, but that brings me to my final point, although I'm going to get to that after we actually score this store page. Bitter Harvest on the Steam store page from BitQuest Studio. It has a cute, simple, and effective graphic style. They have been updating the game, but it does appear that the studio puts out a fair chunk of products extremely close together. I'm not entirely sure how much depth the game has, especially with the very simple and almost bare bones menu structure, but I do appreciate the passion and the drive behind it. So I think for the sake of full full disclosure for how I am for the kind of impression that the store page is giving me, I am giving Bitter Harvest a 6 out of 10 for the Steam store page. Again, mind you, these ratings are based on how it is presented and sold to me on the storefront on and how they decide to how they decide to showcase their game. Um I do think that some of the presentation here is a little bare bones, and a little bit of that does come down to how the impression of the game itself is. But that doesn't necessarily mean that I am entirely put off or, that I'm not on board with this game and with this project. Like I said, they are on version 1.4 released last month. And it does look like they are still putting work into the game and hoping to maybe get some more sales for it. I am not opposed to giving this game a try, especially when we get to my final point. And that is how I came to be aware of BitQuest Studios' existence. I was just browsing on Reddit the other day, and on a cozy game, like a cozy game community, they were showcasing, or somebody was promoting, giving a brief promotion of a game that they described as a Stardew inspired post apocalypse survival game. And I was like, that sounds like an interesting concept. So I went and signed up for an early alpha of the game. And if this is something that also interests you, you can look it up yourself too. Ashfield Hollow, it does have a full blown Steam page. I'm not going to get into reviewing this one, however, because the game is not yet out. There is a demo, but as far as a more robust gameplay experience, I have signed up for the early alpha testing of this game to hopefully see if I can get this. And I even asked the poster on Reddit, like, how would you feel about somebody going and making like a little short YouTube series about their experience with that early alpha? And based on the premise of the game, at least the premise, I was like, you know what? I would totally give it a try. And that is what clued me into this developer. BitQuest Studio put out Bitter Harvest, and now they're working on this game to come out first quarter 2027. And I'm like, you know what? I'll give it a shot. I'll go ahead and sign up for that. I got the posters blessing from Reddit saying, hey, yeah, if make like a little video series on it or something, however they do. Um, but since the game is not out yet, I didn't feel like I could give it a proper review since some of the factors of my impressions of the game would be muddied with things like the lack of a price and the fact that the game is not out yet. It is still in development. They're still working on things. How much there really is for me to go on is really left up in the air. So I didn't want to give this game a judgment because I wasn't confident I could judge it accurately enough or faithfully enough to what the final product is going to look like. Now, I know I have reviewed early access games on this channel, but even those were games that were in early access that you could actually purchase and play at the time I was reviewing them. This game has a demo, and hopefully if I get in on that other production on that other alpha testing, I am looking forward to going ahead and giving it a shot. And I'll be announcing on the Discord if and when those videos are ready to go live and start publishing those. They may just be a short series, uploaded to coincide with some of the other projects that I have going on. My Reciteer and Stardew is running continuously, and Fields of Mystria is on the way too. Now, that is to say, Ashfield Hollow is the original reason, like I said, the original reason that I was alerted to this studio. And I do think that the studio has some interesting projects out there, some interesting games for actually relatively low prices for anybody that's just out there looking for something that might be a little goofy, a little simple. Office Survival Simulator, Urban Ascend, they've got some variety under their belt. They're not all like a one-trick pony like that other thing we were reviewing what last week I think, where that developer or that publisher, however they're categorized, where everything they seem to be making seem to almost all fit under those kind of like samey simulation type games. This studio does appear to have at least multiple visions and multiple things that they wanted to get out into the world. And I do think that it looks like it has some promise, they have some merit. Again, I'm hoping to get in on this alpha testing for Ashfield, and I do hope that my initial impressions for Bitter Harvest, they're a little on the fence, but leaning slightly more towards the positive side. Again, that on the fence is just based on the store's presentation. I don't know that I would personally spend the $10. Maybe if the store page had like some extra trailer or explanation or some extra characterization, like something to showcase the characters. Because a lot of times games like these, they live and breathe on the NPCs and your relationship with them as the player. That's one of the things that is constantly coming up in Stardew and Mystria and Harvest Moon conversations is people's love for the villagers. And honestly, I think that maybe they could showcase a little bit more of the game if they leaned a bit more into the villagers and not just the fact that it's it's a farming sim with a twist. But again, that's just my opinion. This is by all means, leave a note down below in the comments if you agree, disagree, if you've played this, or oh my gosh, heaven forbid if the developer sees this. Please know that I am not trying to trash you guys or trash your work. I do think that there is some promise here, especially coming from indie studios of varying sizes. Like not every indie studio is cranking out, game of the year awards type of stuff. Indie studios do come in so many shapes and sizes, making things of different levels of technical mastery, and different degrees of personal passions. And I do see, I see the passion behind it. I do see that somebody wanted to create something and share something with the world, and I do appreciate that with honestly so much of my being. Now, we do have a lot going on. I have been picking up a lot of overtime at work, so some of my other projects are a little harder to juggle. I know we have the shiny Pokemon collection as well. We have an update coming up tomorrow for that one, or well, tomorrow if you're watching this video on launch day. Otherwise, keep an eye on other things. We did have a good experience with GoFest. I know I've mentioned other cozy games through this. I do have the Stardew and the Reciteer series with daily uploads going on, and the new Fields of Mystria update is also dropping soon. And I know they've been doing some engine overhaul with Mystria that I think has already hit the game's updates, but I do look forward to trying out the game's full final release. In August. I am going to try and get a jump start on recording those and get a new save started for, since the previous series was first impressions and went on a little hiatus because of some crashes that I was dealing with that made it hard to continue recording. But hopefully the 1.0 will be a lot more stable and steady so that we can go ahead and do a full proper run for a total completion of the game. And maybe depending on how the alpha goes, I might change my tune about Bitter Harvest. Again, if anybody else down there has played this, let me know what you thought in the comments below. Positive, negative, because honestly, the how we feel about the games we play and the games and the things we experience, they are going to vary based on our personal tastes and personal experiences. I know the reviews can be mixed either way, but I do hope that I do maybe get the opportunity, the time and the ability to go ahead and give this a try later on, because I think the idea is neat, and I would like to see how it's been explored so far, especially since it has gone through a couple of updates with since 1.4 now. So, by all means, like I said, somebody let me know down there below in the comments. I think one buddy of mine mentioned that he has actually played Bitter Harvest, so that'd be a cool thing to see what people think here.